So, guys, I want to review AEW for August 13, and there's a few things that I want to say before I start the show that I got some good news. I got this really sexy cheerleader outfit, and my girlfriend's coming over in an hour, so lucky me, bitches. The second thing is that my boss approved my overtime, so, no, my time off really. So, I'm actually going to go to Toronto, then I'm going to go to Newark, New Jersey, going to go to St. Louis, and then I'm going to go to Chicago, bitches. So the last four pay-per-views I'm going to go to. Unfortunately, I cannot go to London because, we got to work, And then the last thing, and I'll just be serious with you guys, is that I have been having some health issues, and one of the issues is that I have an addiction to sugar. So I'm gonna work hard on cutting that down, try to eat healthy smoothies. I had a banana kale smoothie, so I'm gonna try to have that more and more. I need to watch how much sugar I'm having, because I have this thing too where I have a hard time going to sleep. I just worked 8 hours at night, and now it's I'm up, I'm active. In the afternoon I'm gonna crash, and then I'm gonna work 3 12-hour days in a row really. So definitely watch your health. Watch how many hours that you do. I had a big victory this morning. I usually get a soda, or I usually get a bunch of donuts at work. I had a gallon of water that I spent drinking, but then I had 3 Swiss Miss. So, I need to work on my sugar craving, and I'm willing to get help for that. But with this said, that this was a very consequential show for AEW, where they really wanted to throw a lot of matches at Forbidden Door. And the reason why they did that is for two reasons. That obviously Forbidden Door is close to being sold out. I think the O2 Arena has 20,000 people. So they're at 14,000 the last time, and now they're opening more seats. And then also they have to do a good job with the O2, because they need to make sure Wembley Stadium is a success. It went from I think 78,000 to 50,000. So they have to make sure that they don't get 20,000 or whatever. Really, they really have to make sure that that's sold out at 90,000 seats. I know AEW can do it, but there's a lot of things they have to do really. But ultimately, they need Forbidden Door to be a banger to get the UK crowd excited, to be hey, you know what, we're gonna bring in more people, we're gonna have an epic night, so therefore we're gonna have an epic night in August 2026. The show opens with MJF, and he cashes in his Forbidden Door, his briefcase. So his contract. So now he's gonna have a match at Forbidden Door, and what happens in this is that he gets a little Hangman Adam Page gets under his skin. And then then he goes from not having self-control to having self-control, and it feels a little weird with MJF, because he's usually sometimes he's very insecure, and that's his main weakness, is that he's very, very insecure, and he has a superiority-inferiority complex. So it does feel a little weird, because he goes from very calculated to almost he's almost like Eric Cartman in a way. He goes from very calculated, you hurt his feelings, and then that's when he falls apart. But I also feel that it's a little weird, because now Athena's cashing in, so you're both doing two RVDs, which means that when Rob Van Dam faced John Cena, he actually became the champion. He didn't do something like ambush him like Edge did to The Undertaker. So it's a little bad in a way, because you have to do something where Athena or MJF have to win, because it's almost why would they go through all this just to lose? And I think they had Adam Copeland. No, they had Christian Cage be the first winner, and then he lost really. So you have to have somebody win, and I think they're gonna do Athena. If they don't do that, then it's it really hurts the show really. Somebody has to win. So, I'm happy to see that MJF. I'm happy to see that how MJF is there, and they also didn't have this Hurt Syndicate on the show, so it kind of makes you think about how the Hurt Syndicate's going to play into this, because the Hurt Syndicate can just beat down Adam Page, and help MJF. But their issue too is that, again, you don't know how they're going to end this show really, because remember what happened with Wrestle Dream when they had Bryan Danielson lose to Jon Moxley, then they beat him down. They're moving Wrestle Dream from Washington State to Missouri because they pissed off so many people. So they have to like really think really really hard about what are you going to do. And the safest thing I would say is have Athena beat Tony Storm, and then have MJF lose to Hangman. Or there could be interference, and then he's like, okay, we have to do this again, really, something like that. But you can't do, but it just doesn't look good that they're both like doing they're both not doing the ambush cash in, they're doing the RVD cash in. The first match was Moxley versus Kevin Knight, and this was actually like another match that they had to be really careful about because Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey, I know they both look like cruiserweights, so you have to make sure that okay, you don't make your champion look bad. Your former champion looked bad. I said to myself, Kevin Knight, he had like the 4th of July, like ice pop colors, red, white, and blue. Kevin Knight starts by rushing into John Moxley, hits him with a bunch of foot stomps, they exchange knife head chops. They go to the ringside area, and then again, the referee is counting, but they're outside the ring maybe for like a minute or something like that. But at least they're doing the counting. They're not doing something like they're fighting all over the arena or in the crowds or whatever, and then the match is still going on. So they're starting to kind of cut the shit on going outside into the arena for more than like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or whatever, really. Kevin Knight does leaps over the top rope, does a leaping over the top rope forearm. He does a leap off the ramp area into the ringside area. Kevin Knight does a scoop slam and a running splash. He does a superplex and gets a 2 count. I was also really happy that I think Kevin Knight got two counts in this match, but they build towards that, so it didn't feel like Santino Marella getting a 2 count on John Cena. It felt like that he had to like work at it, so it doesn't feel like something out of place, really. So the next thing was that Moxley wins with a Bulldog Sleeper, and what happens is that Kevin Knight wins. No, Kevin Knight loses, and then what happens is that I would say about with the match, okay, it was a good showing of Kevin Knight, but it doesn't really change anything about him. It's because they switched to setting up a match for Forbidden Door. So what I would say is it was just a waste of time type of match. I know that they're trying to make Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight look stronger. In some ways you did that, but you've kind of had them in a bunch of matches that are like long endurance matches. So you ultimately did not make them look stronger. You kind of repeated what you've been doing with them, which is showing that it takes some time to beat them. Like they have some endurance to them. So Darby puts Wheeler in a body bag. Claudio puts Darby in a body bag and does a spinning throw. Darby is saved by Will Ospreay. And it's announced that they're going to do a lights out steel cage match. I'm going to talk more about this in another video, but it is a little controversial. My notes. It's a little controversial because it's a little stupid in a way, because wouldn't you want to have blood and guts? Wouldn't that make a lot more sense? Would that be a lot more like something that the audience understands? Because most people don't understand what a lights out match is, because that doesn't really happen a lot in wrestling. So I just think that they should have just done blood and guts, and that would have made a lot more sense, really. I understand why they won't do that if like maybe the ring area is too small or something like that. But they should have just had blood and guts, make that a pay-per-view level match or a pay-per-view stipulation, to make people happy. The other controversy about this is that you main evented your last pay-per-view, your WrestleMania pay-per-view with a Texas Death Match. Now you're main eventing your Forbidden Door show with another ultraviolet match. Because remember, last year you threw Swerve Strickland on a cinder block and you put a syringe through his mouth. So it's almost like, what are they going to do in this one? How are they going to make this similar or make that of that caliber, really? And then also, I think with the UK crowd, there's strict regulations in the UK, so I'm not sure how far they can take the violence, really. So they may have to be like, okay, we can make it hardcore, but we can't go into the combat zone wrestling realm. If it gets to that realm, really, then I think that a lot of people are going to say, okay, I'm going to be a little put off by that. And then I also think the other part of it is, then again, Combat Zone Wrestling has a tournament death in a few weeks. And then you also kind of have to ask yourself, okay, is this something where it's a little too much, you know? So they have to be very, very careful with what they're doing with all this hardcore stuff, because they overdo it, it doesn't become special. And then you had a and then you had Mercedes Monet the Toxic Spider, Tekla, and Sky Blue versus Windsor, Queen Aminata, and Willow. Queen Aminata does a spinning full Nelson on Mercedes Monet that looks really cool. Willow Nightingale does a second rope drop kick on Tesla, and then a Death Valley driver to Serena B. Windsor hits a Blue Thunder Bomb on Serena B. Willow Nightingale does a cannonball on all three of them. Queen Aminata does a running side slam. Windsor does a pop-up power bomb and a sharpshooter to Sky Blue for the loss. I know they're trying to build up Alex Windsor, but it's a little like you have to be a little careful with this, because you honestly know that obviously she's Will Ospreay's fuck buddy, really, just like Mordo, so she's getting the preferential treatment, but she has really great matches. I also like that she's a bigger body wrestler, because there's usually a lot of like diva type of wrestlers in AEW where it's like these skinny little girls. So it's good to have different body sizes. But also Windsor does a really great job in like tag team and fatal 4-way matches, in multi-person matches, really. So I really think that again you're trying to establish who she is, really, because she's going to be in a fatal 4-way with Mercedes in it. So it makes a lot of sense that you're going to show off what she can do. So they're trying to introduce you to Alex Windsor, and I appreciate that. So it doesn't feel like, who the fuck is this person? The next thing that I really appreciate about this is you have Athena and Toni Storm watching the match, so it kind of says, okay, they matter as well. But the other good thing about this is that they're watching the match, so it's almost like saying, hey, whoever's going to be the champion after Forbidden Door, I really think that it shows, well, they're looking at these other women and saying, hey, maybe these people can take our can face us one day for the women's championship. So so that's very, very important, because it's like what people were saying with AEW is that they don't really build up their women's division that well. They really struggle. It's been really Mercedes and Toni, and Athena has kind of been like the it's been her job to keep up Ring of Honor, really. So you have to kind of establish other people and make it look like they matter to the champion. So this is all good brownie points. The next match that you had was Adam Copeland versus Stokely. It was really just a comedy match, and really nothing special happened outside of Adam Copeland. The match goes to no contest because Stokely throws like dust or something in Adam Copeland's eyes, and then what happens is that because FDR attacked Adam Copeland, the restraining order that they have is null and void, because with restraining orders, if you put it on somebody and then you decide to harass them or attack them or approach them, you go to jail. That's how it works in the real world. But in professional wrestling and in this promotion, they can call it null and void, because it's like, oh, well, why do you need a restraining order from somebody assaulting you when you're assaulting that person? And then the other part of it is they announced it's going to be Christian Cage and Adam Copeland. They reunite. It's going to be Christian Cage and Adam Copeland versus Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne. So that's I understand why they're doing it, but that's not really a challenge for Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, because Kip Sabian usually loses a lot. He's been like a jobber, so it's just not a good look, really. Like, Kip Sabian is not the right dance partner. It's almost like if they had Rocky Romero or somebody else, really. I think the Alexander guy, like the guy with like the large beard, that's in the Dark Order. If they have the Dark Order versus them as well, really. Like, these are like, Kip Sabian loses way too much. Like, you need somebody else that's like legitimate, really. Like, or you need to have Kip Sabian go on a winning streak. But Nick Wayne is this is going to be a good look for Nick Wayne, because Nick Wayne does a lot of great stuff. He has a winning streak. He's a great wrestler. So I really think that this is a great usage of Nick Wayne, but it's a bad usage of Kip Sabian. Like, he doesn't feel like somebody that I think stands a chance, really. They should have just recruited one of the Don Callis members, or they should have had another, like, or if they're friends, like, let's see who Nick Wayne's friends is, because I think there's another person that they're friends with, or another villain that they're friends with, or they can bring back, like, Luchasaurus, and you, as a villain, to help Nick Wayne, and that would feel like more legitimate, because at least with Luchasaurus, he's like big guy against like two veterans. So Kip Sabian just makes that an awkward thing, really, So I want to see the match. I'm cool with it, even though that there's a weakness in it. And then there is how should I say this? They announced it's going to be a 5-on-5 lights out match. So you have Hiroshi Tanahashi, Will Ospreay, and Darby Allin in it. And there's a couple of problems with this. That first of all, Hiroshi Tanahashi, he's a Japanese wrestler, and I remember seeing some of his matches in AEW, but I've not watched any of his New Japan stuff. I don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. But usually, when people think of New Japan wrestlers, they think of the strong style, like long matches, high endurance, high flyer stuff. Like martial arts with like a longer version of martial arts with a lot more jumping and kicking. So you're putting him in a hardcore type of match, really. So I don't think that kind of works, really. It's almost like if you're gonna have Terry Funk, if you had Terry Funk in this and Terry Funk was gonna retire, this would work. If you're going to have Ric Flair do another match, this would work, because Ric Flair does a lot of bloody stuff, really. If you're going to have Bryan Danielson retire, you would want to have him to have a technical masterpiece. You wouldn't put him in a match like this. So he feels out of place. The other thing is that Will Ospreay says something like his herniated disc issue is over, really. So that's unrealistic, because something like that takes a long time. So it's all just a bullshit card to take a couple of weeks off, And then the next match they had was the Young Bucks, Kyle Fletcher, Josh Alexander, Brody King, Ishii, Hiromu Takahashi, and Hologram. So this is one of the issues with AEW. That's when I fall asleep. I go, because I fell asleep last night, so I had to rewatch the show this morning. And this is one of like the big problems with AEW. Sorry guys, I sit in a comfortable position. Is that the fact that is the fact that they do way too many tag teams, triple matches, four-way matches, trios matches. Like, when you keep doing these types of matches, two things happen. You gas the audience because there's a lot to pay attention to. The other issue is that there's so many, high flyer spots, you can't pay attention to what's going on, really. And then also it becomes a spot fest and everything like that, really. There were some really cool spots. And then also, it's like what some people say, when you watch the match and you just analyze it, you go into the video game territory. Hologram does a top rope dive onto the villains. Josh Alexander does a military press on Brody King, I believe. Kyle Fletcher does a pile driver on Brody King, which looks really sweet. Brody King does a mid rope dive on Kyle Fletcher. Hiromu Takahashi pins Josh Alexander, and I do not like this, because Josh Alexander, remember, he was in TNA wrestling. He held the TNA championship for over 500 days. He's had long endurance matches. He's a big man wrestler. Like, you take the DNA of Kurt Angle, you take the DNA of Ryback, and you make a wrestler, you get Josh Alexander. So this is not a good usage of him. And isn't he like the Maple Leaf Wrestling champion? So this is a poor use of Josh Alexander. He needs to demand better, and he needs to be almost like a Will Ospreay, because he can have the long matches, but he's been really much a jobber, and that's not a good look for him. He is becoming like Luchasaurus, or like Powerhouse Hobbs or Brian Cage. He's going into that type of I'm a big man that loses too much type of role, which he shouldn't be, really. So I'm not happy with that. I understand they're trying to make Hiromu Takahashi a deal, and then they announced that's Hiromu Takahashi versus Kyle Fletcher. And I'm not sure. I think it was Hiromu Takahashi that was going like, hey! And other things like that. He kind of has like that falsetto yell, stop doing that. I'm not sure who's doing that in the ring. I think it might be him, but that does not work. That's just too cartoony for me. And then also too, that kind of looks like a Japanese stereotype where people are overly eccentric. So he needs to not do that. Also, he has good like trunks. Really, I like all the colors on it, like kind of like a tie dye, neon macho man psychedelic mix. So you know what? I have money. I just got paid yesterday, so if he tells me where to get that, I got some money in my social security card and that. The next thing is that Renee interviews Swerve Strickland, and then Okada comes out, and then there's issues with the microphone with Renee. So this has been happening a bunch of times. I'm actually very proud of Ricochet because Ricochet just got on the microphone and said, "Hey, my mic's not working. Hey, this is live television, you guys. Tony, this is live television. This show's worth $1 million. Fix your audio, Tony." I like that Ricochet did that. He was a heel, but I respect him because, in film, you get fired after on the first time that happens, really, because you get fucked because you can't fuck up the audio. It makes the show look unprofessional, really. So if it's the same person, they have to say, okay, because they fucked it up like last year with Ricochet. During World's End, they fucked it up with Adam Copeland. So if they keep having audio issues, you need to fire your audio person. And then the other thing is that the Young Bucks Mox recruits the Young Bucks, and that's a bad thing because people were laughing and joking and other things. And when he was saying something like Hiroshi Takahashi, he was saying his name a bunch of times. People were laughing from the crowd, really. So I think that a lot of people are not taking the Young Bucks seriously. So you have to kind of be careful because, again, you're trying to have a serious lights out match saying, we want to get revenge for you injuring a bunch of people at All In, like Ospreay, Darby Allin, like they want their revenge. There's a bloodlust to this. So why the fuck are you doing something like having the Young Bucks and then people are laughing at them? He did this comedy shit where you don't take their promo seriously. I imagine at Forbidden Door, you're trying to have a grudge match. Like we need to get our vengeance for all the shit you put us through for trying to take us out, really. And then I'm gonna have the Young Bucks come out and do joke comedy shit. So it's like, and then this is what happens as a result. Really, you need a serious match. You need a bloodlust, a grudge, like getting under your skin, like when Randy Orton was a heel and he got under your skins. Really, you need to have that. But the Young Bucks, again, you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get it to the level it needs to be. The emotions you need to be, if the Young Bucks keep doing this, oh well, they're not the EVPs anymore, and they do joke comedy. And then the other part of it is, you know this because people are laughing and goofing when they see them. So one thing that could happen, and I can say as a stipulation, if our team wins, the winner of this match, and the winner, the person who gets the winning move or wins the match for whoever's team faces Adam Page at All Out in Toronto. They should do that. And then the next thing they should say is that if the Young Bucks win, they get their EVP powers back. And then the next thing that they should say is, okay, if Team Ospreay wins, maybe the Young Bucks get fired or something happens where they become their slaves for their personal assistants for a couple of months or something like that. Like each week you have them be doing stuff for them. They wash Darby Allin's body bags, or they carry Will Ospreay's bags, or Hiroshi Tanahashi, they do stuff for him. Just try to put some stipulations in that, or have a way that can build up to the next pay-per-view. Like the winner of this match is going to be facing Hangman for the championship, and then you could set up Moxley and Hangman in steel cage, or you can set up Darby Allin versus Hangman, or you can set up Ospreay versus Hangman, or something else, really. So they can just work this more. And then the last thing was that you had LFI versus the Ops. So there's nothing special about that because LFI usually loses. The match didn't go that long. One thing that I was surprised about is that the match ended around 10 p.m. because usually you have overruns and other things like that. It's not good use of Roosh. There are people like WrestleToddy who talk about LFI really. Like there's potential there. They give a shit. They're trying to have their what's the word? They're trying to find their place in AEW, but they lose way too much. They're kind of in the gates of agony type of role. So it's ultimately like I said, like if they keep losing and it's not working out for them, go to CMLL, go to AAA, go to WWE, go to TNA really, because there's potential there really, but they can't just be they're there to be there. And then I was also saying, what would happen if you had the Ops and they got blindsided by Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, and then you set up Gates of Agony versus Gates of Agony and Ricochet versus the Ops, or you set up something where they get overly ambitious, so you have Ricochet and the Gates of Agony attack both teams, and then you have a 3-on-3-on-3-on-3. So it's like LFI versus the Ops versus Ricochet and the Gates of Agony versus a team from New Japan Pro Wrestling with three wrestlers from the company, and then you for the trios title. So then you do it that way. That would be something that would work. And then at the end you had MJF attack Adam Page. Again, it's interesting to see what's going to happen because the Hurt Syndicate's not there, because the Hurt Syndicate want to be paid to hurt people. MJF is a rich wrestler, so they can easily beat the shit out of Adam Page, and then MJF becomes a champion. They can do that route, or like I've said, they have to think about the ending. If you make MJF win, how is the fan base going to feel? Would people want to go to Wembley Stadium next year? How's the UK crowd going to feel? Are they going to be going to Wembley Stadium next year? So, overall it was a really good show. They really gave Forbidden Door a booster shot, but I do have to criticize the fact that it's typical AEW. It's a week before the show, so obviously they're going to be rushing a lot of matches. And like I said, that I think that one reason why I'm not so upset is because a lot of the matches are good really, because like I said, this is the second most important show of the year because they have to sell Wembley Stadium out. And then the next thing that's going to happen is that, they're close to 20,000. It's good if they sell out, really. And they want to sell out because that's a good look, really. So they sell out 20,000. That's going to be their second biggest crowd. And they've not gotten a crowd over 10,000 people. I don't believe this year they haven't done. They've done that at Grand Slam Australia. I believe they did that in Grand Slam Mexico. I was in Grand Slam Mexico, but every other show, I think that Leah Kuris and Revolution and Double or Nothing, I think they've had an average of between 6,000 and 8,000 people. So they really, really have to make sure that they ride that momentum really, because if they do that, it's going to attract more people, because I'm not sure how many people are in the Scotiabank Arena. I think it's 20,000 or 30,000. That this selling out arenas, having more than 20,000 people, they need to keep, you need to keep doing shit with this, because that is what's going to help AEW. So I think overall it was a really good show. It achieved what it's supposed to achieve, which is make Forbidden Door must see. Even though a lot of it is definitely rushed, really. But sometimes you have to do that because that you need to you need to come in strong, really. Like, for example, you can just have storylines play out and build better, more powerful endings emotionally. Sometimes that's a good way of doing things, but sometimes the best way to do things is to know just know when to strike while the iron is hot, and Forbidden Doors is where the iron is hot, because that's going to set up Wembley Stadium. So ultimately, really after Forbidden Door, they really have to build up more stories and compelling television, utilize Collision to its best, utilize Dynamite to its best, build up stories and feuds, and then just keep that rhythm until you get to, Wembley Stadium next year. Like, and then as I said, and one big thing that they have to do is make sure that both Scotiabank and the O2, they're over 15,000 people. I think they're close to 15,000 people. I will say they have to make sure these shows are bangers, because if they don't do that, then it's like saying, why should all these extra people come in, and we should be like, oh, we're gonna treat it like a filler show or whatever. Really, like really, AEW has gotten some momentum. There's more people watching. There's more people going to the shows. WWE has some controversies around it, so definitely AEW just has to keep improving their storytelling, reorganize their shows, and just keep doing bigger and better. And they'll definitely hit it. I would also say as a final thing, I did not like the main event. Why is LFI and the Ops there? The Trios title doesn't really matter. It would make more sense to have, like, Kyle Fletcher as a TNT champion headline the show if they wanted to do it that way, and then you bring home Hiromu Tanahashi and you announce that match, so it feels like more like Forbidden Door, really. Or you do something like, as I said many times, you save your heavyweight champion for last, really, or have the segment for last. But I understand why sometimes you can't do that. Or the women's match for the last, really, knowing that you want to make the women's title as good, really. But the trios match as an ending doesn't work, even though you get Samoa Joe in there.